What's up, enthusiasts? It's your boy Rob, back with another video. Guys, tonight we're going to be taking a look at a painting tutorial by Darcy Bono Creations, I believe it is. So guys, we are going to be taking a look. We're going to be diving in. I don't know about you, but lately I've been not feeling very enthusiastic about painting. So I thought this would be perfect for the channel to get me kind of boosted up to get back into painting. Because I'm usually that guy that will just like throw 2 or 3 layers on and slap it on a table. So we are going past that. We were growing up. We're getting older in this hobby. So we need to break through those hindrances and become leveled up in our painting ability. So guys, let's get to this video right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Darcy Bono, and in this video I'm going to show you that yellow is actually not that hard to paint. We're going to paint some Imperial Fist armor that is both highlighted and has a slightly weathered look to it as well, and it is both quick and fun and beginner friendly. So that being said, let's get started.
Guys, yellow has been a thorn in my side for some time. I feel like my top 3 colors that are just damn near impossible to paint will be yellow, red, and white. Can give me some problems at times. So yeah, this is going to be a big one. So guys, get your brushes ready, get your models ready. Let's get into it.
Since I want a very intense yellow, I'm starting with a white primed mini. This will retain the vibrancy as I'm working with contrast paints. You can also choose to prime your miniature in an ivory such as Wraithbone. This will give you greater saturation when it comes to yellow. However, since I want my black trim to be a cold black, I'm sticking with white as ivory will make that a warmer black.
So let me stop this real quick, guys. I typically prime my guys in black. I think it's just easier. There was some time that I was priming in gray. I think when I first started in the hobby, when I first started painting more so, I was priming in gray, and then I shifted to black. And I think I've done like maybe just a handful of guys in white, and I wasn't really happy with the way it turned out, just because if you don't get full coverage, you get the cracks, you get the bleed, you'll see the white in the crevices, and I hate that. So I think that's why I always stuck with black, because black is like easy mode. So, but she's the professional, not me. You guys listen to her. Just disregard what I say, but just be entertained by it.
I also recommend painting the black surfaces first so you don't run the risk of getting black on your nice yellow armor later. And for the sake of visibility and just so it's easier for me to paint, I'm going to remove this guy's arm as he's pushed to fit. It's very easy to do. I'm also taking his head off as that is going to be red. So some sub-assembly here. He's going to look a little bit different as I'm painting him, but you'll see the completed model in the finale.
Now, I do know I like to rush. I'm that guy that's like, I want to get models done in like the same night. I'm not trying to come back to anything. I don't really mix paints and stuff like that. I usually just like straight out the pot onto the brush. You know, it is what it is. Whatever color it is, that's the color that's going on the model.
Our first step is an incredibly gratifying one. We're going to be using Imperial Fist Yellow Contrast. Yes, as the name implies, this is the go-to for painting Imperial Fist. This is an incredibly dense, quote, contrast paint. I say that in quotes because it doesn't actually provide much contrast as far as like depth and picking out detail goes. However, as you can see, it goes on absurdly smoothly.
It is giving that model some really good coverage. She's got a nice thick brush. I don't know if that really plays too much of a factor, but it seems like it does, combined with the quality of the paint. I am a cheapskate, so I prefer like Vallejo, and it's not saying Vallejo's cheap by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm like an army painter, Vallejo kind of guy. So I don't really tamper too much with Citadel paints really anymore. I've had a few pots. I've dabbled with some P3 back when I was playing War Machine and Hordes. So
and
that's a little background there.
You don't need to worry about pooling. I've used yellow inks before, and they always seem to have some sort of residue, some sort of blotching. This, unless you are absolutely dousing it, this goes on like butter. So this is going to be our basic kind of mid-tone yellow that sets the foundation for everything that's to come.
Now, I think moving forward, it might be in my best benefit to spend a little more when I need to purchase those paints that are, just harder to apply. So in this case, like the yellow. So maybe trying out the Citadel yellow color, and then for white, and then as well with red. So that could be something. Guys, take note. Take note. Don't skimp on your paints, especially with the more difficult colors to apply.
And one of the best things about this paint is that there's no playing around with consistency in this step. This is straight from the pot. So just apply it.
Yeah.
Even kind of swipes, you'll see
That's my
how
style.
smoothly this goes on. So coat
That's my style, boys. That's my style. Straight from the pot.
all your armor in this straight from the pot, and we'll move on to the next step. And just wanted to demonstrate this really quick. Unlike other contrast paints, this looks amazing on flat surfaces. So you can absolutely paint your dreadnoughts and your vehicles in this color.
Yeah.
Just use a large brush where you can take big wide swipes with it, and you're pretty much good to go. Check this out.
So since I've been playing with 20 mil for quite some time now, I don't really purchase too many of the larger brushes. I typically get smaller sizes just because I know my models, I need to get, really fine detail, or I try to shoot for it at least. So, it's been a while since I've painted a 28 millimeter model. So I don't know, maybe with as much time as I've spent painting 20 mil in this past 2 years, you never know, my skills might have kind of came up some. I might have acquired some new abilities. I might have to try it out.
And once your Imperial Fist yellow has completely dried, it will look gorgeous, just like this. So now we're ready to move on to the next step, which is a shade coat that will bring this down to a more appropriately industrial yellow.
Okay. And see, this is where I really need to pay attention, because had this been me, I would have laid that. So let me kind of start from the beginning of how I typically do things. So if there's like flesh tones needed, I will lay down my flesh tone, and I typically just choose 3 more colors, and then that's what the model's going to get. So in this situation, painting like a Space Marine, I would have hit him with the yellow. I would have went back with some accent colors, 2 accent colors, and then maybe another color for, I guess, the weapon, any kind of gunmetal or anything like that, and then a dry brush. Boom, that's it. Maybe a wash, then a dry brush, but usually it's just one or the other, because I'm trying to really get them done, especially if it's a situation where it's like a large army or anything like that. If it's going to be 20 models on the table coming from the same kit, yeah, they're getting speed painted for sure.
Next, we're going to mix a shade coat using 1 drop of Gore Grunta Brown to 3 drops Contrast Medium, and we're going to mix this together until we get a nice thin consistency that we are then going to spread entirely all over this yellow armor. I'm going to tilt it here so you can see how nice and transparent that is. It is a beautiful, deep brown orange. So just like the previous step, really not much to this. Just apply this all over your vibrant yellow armor, and this will give you a more of like construction equipment school bus color. It'll basically give you your darkest tone that we're going to be working with, basically accent our recesses and provide contrast in the way that the previous yellow did not. So just put this all over your yellow armor, and you don't even need to worry about pooling. As you can see, I switched to a giant brush because we're going to be stippling later, which is both going to highlight, provide texture, and get rid of any pooling you have. So just spread this over the entire yellow armor and let it dry.
So she's really going to put some time into this, from what it sounds like, because this is the second step, and she's going to be going into a third step, sounds like even a 4th step, and who knows beyond that. I like the details that she's kind of giving us right now. So if I was actually following along, which maybe I will do for another video, if you guys like it, leave a thumbs up on this video, and I'll know to actually try it while we're actually watching it in the future.
So here's what it'll look like once your shade coat has completely dried. Obviously there's splotches and coffee staining and things you don't want on your model, on your nice smooth armor. We're going to take care of that, as well as highlight it in one fell swoop in the next step. So let's get ready to do some stippling.
bro, I would have been done by now. Like, I would have been so done. I would have been like, okay, this model looks good. Let's go ahead and base them and put them on the table for some games. So that I like the attention to detail that she is giving this model. Now, obviously, this is for a video. Of course, she wants to do that because she's trying to teach us how to become better painters. But old Robbie Rob here, oh, I would have been like, oh, I'm done.
What you're going to need to do this is a rounded tip brush. This is an ELF smudge brush. There's the rounded tip right there. You can get these virtually anywhere that sells makeup. They're makeup brushes that are used for creating gradients in eyeshadow.
And if you're married, you don't even have to buy it because most likely your wife will have the brushes already. So I won't have to go buy any. I'm just gonna go digging around in my wife's makeup box.
This smaller one is an ELF concealer brush. As you'll see, the tip is much, much smaller and is great as it gives you much more control over your application. I usually use this in the smaller areas like on the forearm and anywhere that would be difficult to get to with a bigger brush. And initially, this is kind of a combination of a dry brush mixed with a like stabbing motion. So what you're gonna do is get some white or ivory, either one. Ivory will just give you a little bit more of a golden color intensity, but both will create your highlights. And then start with the edges. Start with the sharpest edges. Make sure you get a lot of the paint off your brush on those edges. You don't want this in the flatter area. So I'm starting with the parts that I know have the most texture to it. And I'm doing that by turning it upside down just so it's a little bit easier to get the spots I need. So start on the edges, just traditional dry brush, and then what you're going to do is lightly pat further in, and that will create your stippled pattern. As you can see here, it's like a powdered sugar effect, basically. So do that on all of the surfaces, and the more of this you do, the brighter your subsequent layer will be. But because you're still retaining those darkened recesses, it's going to create a nice, smooth gradient. And here you will see me stippling out one of those blotches I mentioned earlier. That's all you have to do is just lightly make this pattern over top, and the dots in that stippling pattern basically break up the darkened blotches, so they're going to be undetectable after you apply your next layer of contrast paint.
So I was getting just like really caught up into what she was saying because a lot of these techniques, or at least, you know, for sure, this stippling technique I've never tried before, and how she's kind of like coming more so into certain areas of the model where she's kind of got some pooling. That's actually really clever. I'm going to really have to try this. Guys, let me know how well you can paint, and you know, if these techniques are kind of already in your repertoire, and so you're not really gaining anything from this video. If you are, I hope you are at least, and we can all learn something new.
Here I am, just dry brushing the edges. Just keep doing this all over your miniature. I'm using the small concealer brush just so I have a little bit more control. You can obviously switch to the larger one if you wish. I just thought it was easier for you guys to see how this is built up if I use the smaller brush. But just in case, here is an example of what the smudge brush looks like. As you can see, it's great for big, wide areas like this.
So, just jumping back onto the brushes, like I typically buy like a pack of like 7 brushes, and then I've got like 2 or 3 brushes that I've had for quite some time, and they're really detailed for this putting in facial features, and so I've kind of really just hung on to those 3 brushes, and then the 7 brushes packs that I typically buy, I'll switch those out every so often, and because they're cheaper, so you know I'm not breaking the bank by just getting rid of them and just buying some new ones.
So that being said, this shot right here is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Dry brush, stipple combination.
Dry brush, stipple combination.
The texture, the pattern, the dry brushing creates the gradient. So as you can see, that pauldron is looking nice and highlighted.
I was just about to say that.
You can really build it up as much as you want, but especially focus it on the edges where the light would be catching the most.
So one thing I've always noticed, I know a lot of people will go into extreme details when painting their models. I noticed that naturally when you are playing the game, you know, you're going to have light sources shining down on your model. And so it's going to just naturally cast those shadows and those highlight areas that you necessarily don't need to paint all the time. So, and I know this is more so, this is kind of, in some situations you would maybe do this if you're playing D&D and this is going to be your main character. Then you would put this much effort into painting the model, and maybe not with a large army. So, but still,
And by now your miniatures
good techniques,
look like
really
it
good
just
techniques.
came from a Slaneshi birthday party in Colombia. So yeah, but this is great because we've got our highlights set up, we've got texture made, and we are ready to rock the next step.
Next step, guys.
So all you're going to do is apply a thin coat of Imperial Fist Yellow again. You're not going to drench it like you did last time. You're just going to mostly focus on where you put the white. You don't need to thin this unless your highlights were very sparing, because if you put it straight out the pot on an area that doesn't have much contrast, it's going to undo everything and just look kind of flat. So don't go nuts with this. Just focus it on your highlights.
So see, this could be a situation where if you're not careful, I'm assuming you could just totally hash up your old job. I mean, what you did, the work you did, and it's kind of like, oh damn, now you got to go back and redo some of that work, which would suck. And just some of this stuff, man, I'm like, I just don't really need to do all of this, you know. I love looking at it, and I'm pretty sure this model will look far better than anything I will ever paint. But at the same time, you know, she's speeding this up. I'd like to know how long this process really takes, you know, with drying in between coats and stuff.
And once again, this pauldron shot demonstrates the whole concept perfectly. We're putting Imperial Fist Yellow back over top of our highlights, but because we had those darker tones that we made earlier in this process, we get much more definition and a look of texture to this armor. So as far as the basics go, that is it. That is a nice saturated yellow that doesn't look brand new, but doesn't look all beat up either. And I think that was a pretty simple process. So what we can do from here on out is just increase the definition. You don't need to do this on every single model, but if you're doing something like a hero, these are some great steps you can take. For example, if you found that your recesses have become a little bit muted in some areas due to Imperial Fist Yellow getting in there by accident in the final step, just touch it back up with the exact same shade code that you used to create this dark tone to begin with. Just take the Gorgonta Brown contrast medium mix and just swipe it in the recess that you want darkened.
Now, I will say that I've done things like this in the past where I kind of go back and I touch up the model. I think we should all do that. Half the time it's because I've noticed that I've left spots totally unpainted, and I'm just trying to, you know, make up for it and just kind of just throwing some paint on those little spots. It's usually on the underside of the model. No one's really going to see it, but it's like, I feel like as soon as that model gets like knocked prone or something, I'm gonna like tip him over, and just everyone's gonna see it. It's kind of like looking up under his skirt or something. It's just like, oh no. So I always go back and I will, you know, slap some paint underneath the model and fix some of those spots that didn't come out quite right, or just had some paint that kind of just overflowed. So yeah, we're coming to the end of this video. Let's finish this one up, guys.
On the complete opposite of that, if you would like to add definition by doing some edge highlighting, you can make your edge highlight color by mixing the colors you already have. Take a little bit of white and Imperial Fist Yellow and mix them together until you have a light yellow. Imperial Fist Yellow is so heavily pigmented, once you mix that with white, it's basically a regular paint and no longer has a contrast paint consistency.
That's really interesting.
And again, this is totally optional. It's just if you want to add a bit more definition to your model.
Guys, I will tell you this right now. I have never done that step.
So here's our Imperial Fist and his nice yellow armor. One thing I forgot to mention, looking at all these different colors on this miniature right now, if you get anything on this yellow armor during the painting process, so when you go to do your reds,
this is the tip. Listen up, guys.
If you get any on your yellow, don't freak out. You can use either one of these paints to touch up any mistakes. Imperial Yellow is very similar to Imperial Fist. It's a little bit lighter. It just doesn't have the coverage, the instant coverage that Imperial Fist Yellow has, but that's fine because we're just using this to touch things up. And you may not have heard of Huge Miniatures, but I wanted to give them a shout out. They are a hobby supply company specializing in basing, but they make some very nice paints as well, including Sun Orange, which is this nice, dense golden, heavy-bodied yellow that is...
So guys, go check out Huge Miniatures. She's kind of just, she's pushing it. So we just watched her video. So the least we can do is if we need some yellow paint to go along with our Citadel paints as well, that could be a good alternate that you could possibly stock your paint shelves with.
Perfect for touching up any errors on the armor. So that is how I do my yellow armor. If you would like yours to be a bit more weathered, have a bit more battle damage, stick around for just a few seconds. I'm going to include a link to an older Warhammer TV tutorial on the
So let's go back real quick to...
favorite artists of all time. I can't think M or use either one of these paints to touch up. So here is our Imperial Fist.
So I wanted to stop for a second before we end this video because we're kind of reaching that time. And we have gotten what we've come for. So guys, this model looks really great. She didn't really show us how she did the red, and that's another color that I have trouble with. So what I'll probably do is I'll try to go back, find a video maybe by her or some other painter that we admire, and figure out how to apply red paint well. Guys, let me know who you tend to follow as far as paint tutorials, and let us know in the comments so I can look up these videos and other people can watch these videos as well. Also give that person some more views as well. Guys, that's going to be it for me tonight. I want to thank you again for joining me. And if you guys have not liked the video yet, go ahead and like this video. Go over and watch Darcy's video, and make sure you subscribe so you know the next time I release a video, which will probably be tomorrow. Guys, have a wonderful night. I'll see you tomorrow.